First contact and defiance. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly before Captain Alina Harper and the crew of the U.S. Horizon. Stars glittered like frozen diamonds, faint specks of light illuminating the cold, dark expanse of the galaxy. For months, the ship had been drifting through the uncharted void, its engines purring softly, carrying humanity further than ever before. The journey had been long, 3 years spent exploring the outermost limits of known space. But there was an unspoken excitement among the crew. They were pushing the boundaries of what humanity thought was possible. Captain Alina Harper stood at the helm, her eyes scanning the holographic display flickering on the central console. Her fingers lightly brushed her short black hair as she considered the data streaming in from the sensors. She was a seasoned leader, calm in the face of unknown dangers, but today felt different. There was something in the air, a sense of the unknown hanging thick around them. The ship had ventured farther into the galaxy than any Earth vessel had ever gone. There was no telling what lay ahead. "Captain, we're picking up something." Lieutenant Caleb Morrow's voice broke her thoughts. His hands moved rapidly over his console, eyes narrowing in concentration. "Energy readings are off the charts. The coordinates are..." Alina leaned over, interrupting him. "Where?" "Coordinates 763.12 to 899358, Captain. It's not a natural energy pattern. It's too structured, almost deliberate." Alina's brow furrowed. She'd heard stories from past explorers, rumors of strange occurrences, of signals that seemed too precise to be random. But nothing like this. "What do you mean, deliberate?" Alina asked, her voice betraying the weight of her curiosity. Caleb didn't hesitate. "The readings suggest some kind of energy field, Captain. It's not like anything we've ever seen. Definitely not natural." Alina's heart quickened. A sense of unease began to settle over her. In the past, humanity had encountered dead worlds, abandoned colonies, and strange phenomena, but they had never found another advanced species, never come across something like this. This could be their first contact with another civilization. "Show me," she ordered, her voice calm but tinged with excitement. Caleb typed a few commands, and a 3D hologram materialized above the console. The image shifted as the data processed, revealing a massive distortion in the fabric of space itself, an enormous swirling vortex, pulsating with unnatural energy. It seemed to shimmer in place, warping the very space around it. The boundary was defined, sharp and unnervingly precise. Alina leaned in, her gaze fixed on the display. "Is this some sort of natural phenomenon?" she asked, though the thought seemed unlikely. Dr. Marcus Quinn, the ship's science officer, stood behind her, peering over her shoulder at the display. "No, Captain," he replied, his voice a mixture of awe and caution. "This is no accident. The way the energy fluctuates, it's too regular, too precise. This is an artificial construct. Someone or something has made this, intentionally." Alina's mind raced as she thought through the possibilities. A boundary, artificially created. The implications were massive. Could it be a marker? A border for some alien civilization? This was it. The breakthrough humanity had been waiting for. The first real sign that they were not alone. But if it was a boundary, what lay beyond it? She couldn't let herself get carried away by the excitement, though. She needed to stay focused. "Shall we approach, Captain?" Navigator Layla Tran's voice broke through Alina's thoughts. She was always the steady one, never allowing her personal excitement to get in the way of her professionalism. Alina took a deep breath. It was tempting to charge ahead, to push through into the unknown. But they had to be cautious. A single wrong move, and they could find themselves in a far more dangerous situation than they were prepared for. "Take us in slowly," Alina ordered. "I want full sensor readings. Let's keep our shields up. No matter how welcoming this might seem, we don't know what we're dealing with." The U.S. Horizon glided forward, its massive engines humming as the ship neared the edge of the energy distortion. The stars around them seemed to warp and stretch as they crossed the boundary, the very nature of space twisting in ways that didn't make sense. The ship's sensors went wild, struggling to adapt to the foreign phenomenon. "Captain, I'm detecting more," Caleb said, his voice strained. "There are ships on the other side of the boundary. They're massive, larger than anything we've ever seen. They're unlike anything we've encountered." Alina felt a chill crawl up her spine. The boundary was one thing, but ships, not just one or two, there were more. Larger ships, potentially packed with more firepower than anything the U.S. horizon could handle. "Are they moving towards us?" Alina asked, her heart pounding in her chest. This was the moment that would define their future. "Yes," Caleb replied, his voice tight with tension. "They've altered course. They're coming straight for us." Alina's mind raced, but she forced herself to remain calm. The last thing they needed was to show any sign of weakness. They were explorers, but they also represented humanity. There was no turning back now. If they had to face an alien civilization, so be it. They'd do it on their terms. "All hands, prepare for possible contact," Alina ordered, her voice firm. "We'll treat this as a first contact situation, but I want everyone ready for anything. Leela, keep us steady. Don't give them any reason to think we're vulnerable. Channel open on all frequencies, Captain." Leo Chung, the communications officer, said, his fingers flying over the controls. "Open it," Alina said, her eyes glued to the view screen. The massive alien ships were getting closer, their shapes now clearer. They were long, sleek, and angular, more like predators than ships. The eerie glow coming from their engines seemed to pulse in time with the energy distortion. Alina had never felt more alive, but also more uncertain. The ship's speakers crackled to life, and an alien voice, harsh yet somehow understandable, boomed through the bridge. "You have crossed into the territory of the Sci-Fi Empire. Identify yourselves, or prepare for your transgression to be dealt with." The bridge went silent. The crew stared at each other in disbelief. The Sci-Fi Empire. Alina had never heard of them. And the tone of their message was clear. They weren't asking for an introduction. They were issuing a warning. "Tell them we're explorers," Alina said, her voice firm despite the weight of the situation. "We're here to learn, not to invade. But we won't be intimidated." Leo Chang hesitated for only a moment before responding. "We are explorers from Earth. We mean no harm." The voice on the other end crackled again, this time with a sense of mockery. "Explorers? You are trespassers. You stand on land that is not yours. Turn back now, or face the consequences." Alina's pulse quickened. The last words echoed in her mind. Face the consequences. She exchanged glances with her crew, and without a word, they all knew what had to be done. They weren't going anywhere. Not now. Not ever. "We're not turning back," Alina said, her voice calm but resolute. "Tell them we will continue forward. We'll find a way to make peace, but we won't be bullied." Leo Chang transmitted the message, and the silence that followed felt like an eternity. Finally, the voice crackled again. "Very well, Earthlings. You have chosen your path. But be warned, the Sci-Fi Empire does not tolerate trespassers." And with that, the channel went dead. Enter the Galactic Empire. The U.S. horizon drifted in the void, poised on the edge of a reality it had never imagined. The words from the Sci-Fi Empire still echoed in the minds of the crew, their implications more chilling than any of them had expected. Alina Harper stood on the bridge, her eyes locked on the distant alien ships as they loomed ever closer. The situation had escalated quickly, and there was no turning back now. "Captain, they're still coming," Caleb Morrow reported, his voice steady but tight with tension. His fingers moved rapidly over his console, analyzing the incoming vessels. "I'm detecting a significant increase in their energy output. They're preparing something. Weapons, perhaps." Alina's pulse quickened. The Sithari ships, sleek and menacing, had already altered their course, positioning themselves around the U.S. horizon in a slow but deliberate manner. The sense of foreboding hanging over the crew deepened. These ships were massive, their designs unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The way they moved, the way they shimmered in space, it was as if they were predators circling their prey, waiting for a single misstep. The voice from the Sithari Empire had been firm, demanding, and now, the truth of their power was becoming all too apparent. Elena glanced over at Dr. Marcus Quinn, the science officer, who was hunched over the sensors, his face pale. He was studying the alien vessels with an intensity that bordered on obsession, as though he was trying to find some clue, some small thread of information that could give them an advantage. "Marcus," Elena said, her voice calm but laced with an unspoken urgency. "What are we looking at? What are they preparing?" Quinn's eyes flicked from his readings to the view screen. "The energy signatures coming from those ships are unlike anything we've encountered. They seem to be charging up their weapon systems, Captain. But it's not just that. There's something more, some kind of power source that I can't identify. It's stable, but it's enormous." The truth hit Elena like a punch to the gut. This wasn't a simple confrontation between explorers and unknown forces. The Sithari weren't just a civilization. They were a military powerhouse. And the U.S. horizon, despite its impressive capabilities, was no match for them in terms of raw power. "How long until their weapons are fully charged?" Elena asked, her voice steely. "I'm estimating a few minutes, Captain," Quinn responded. "But if they've already locked onto us, it's only a matter of time before they open fire. We don't have the firepower to stop them." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Elena's mind raced. This was a crossroads, a defining moment for humanity. They could try to reason with the Sithari, but there was no guarantee that they would listen. The warning had been clear: leave or face the consequences. And now, those consequences were closing in on them. Fast. "Captain, we can't stay here and wait for them to destroy us," Caleb said, his voice urgent. "We need to do something. We need to fight back, or at least make them think we're a bigger threat than we really are." Elena turned to face him, her eyes hard. "I'm not willing to start a war over this. We came here to explore, not to provoke. But I won't let them destroy us without a fight either." "Do you want me to fire back, Captain?" Leela Tran, the ship's navigator, asked. Her hands hovered nervously over the controls, her eyes flicking between the incoming Sithari ships and the ever-widening distance between them and the boundary marker. "Our weapons might not match theirs, but we could still defend ourselves." Elena thought for a long moment. The decision weighed heavily on her. They had no intention of provoking a war, but at the same time, she couldn't let the crew of the U.S. horizon be slaughtered. They had to survive, no matter what. "Hold off for now, Leela," she said finally. "Let's see if we can talk our way out of this before resorting to force. We can't assume they're all just monsters. We need to explore every possibility, even if that means taking risks." As if on cue, the communication array crackled to life, the harsh voice of the Sithari Empire filling the bridge once again. "Earthlings, you continue to defy our warning." The voice boomed, the words dripping with authority. "You have entered our borders without permission, and now you will face the consequences. Your ship is unworthy of further consideration." Elena straightened, her resolve hardening. She wasn't going to let the Sithari Empire intimidate her. She wasn't going to let them bully humanity into submission. The crew of the U.S. horizon had come this far because they were unafraid of the unknown, and she would not let that spirit die here. "Leave us no choice, then," Elena said, her voice cold. "We're not going anywhere. We will not be bullied, and we will not back down. We have come to understand the universe, not to conquer, but to learn. And if you try to stop us, you will regret it." The silence that followed was almost unbearable. For a moment, Elena thought the Sithari might be considering their next move. But then the voice returned, tinged with disdain. "Very well, Earthling. You wish to persist. Your arrogance will be your undoing. Prepare to witness the power of the Sci-Fi Empire." With that, the transmission ended, leaving nothing but a dead silence that seemed to swallow up the entire bridge. "Captain, they've locked onto us," Caleb said, his voice low. "The energy signatures are spiking. They're about to fire." Alina's heart pounded. They had no more time for diplomacy. The Sci-Fi Empire had made their intentions clear, but they hadn't expected this. Humanity wasn't going to roll over. They were going to fight. "Prepare the horizon for evasive maneuvers," Alina ordered, her voice calm but carrying the weight of authority. "And prepare our weapons. Let's show them we're not to be underestimated." The U.S. horizon surged forward, its engines roaring as it pushed itself into motion. The crew worked quickly, their movements smooth despite the tension that thickened the air. Alina held her breath as the ship swerved, dodging the first volley of energy blasts that came from the Sci-Fi ships. The horizon wasn't as fast or as powerful as the alien vessels, but it was nimble, and that was something the Sci-Fi hadn't accounted for. As the U.S. horizon danced through space, narrowly avoiding another barrage of energy blasts, Alina turned to her crew. "This isn't just about survival anymore," she said, her voice fierce. "This is about showing the Sci-Fi what humanity is capable of. We're not going to bow down to them. Not now, not ever." The ship's engines roared, propelling them into a series of evasive maneuvers that took the horizon deeper into the heart of the Sci-Fi fleet. But no matter how fast they moved, Alina knew they couldn't keep this up forever. Sooner or later, the Sci-Fi would corner them. They needed a plan, something to turn the tide in their favor. "Captain," Dr. Marcus Quinn spoke up, his voice breaking through the chaos. "There's something on the scans, something anomalous. It's coming from the edge of the boundary marker." Alina turned sharply. "What is it?" "I don't know yet, but it's too large to be a single ship," Quinn replied. "It's big, Captain, really big." For the first time in this entire ordeal, Alina felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they weren't alone in this after all. Rising tensions. The U.S. horizon hurtled through the blackness of space, its engines screaming against the vast, unyielding void. Captain Alina Harper stood at the helm, her eyes focused on the distant alien ships that were closing in, their weapons charging in a deadly rhythm. The tension aboard the bridge was palpable, and every officer seemed to sense the impending threat that loomed over them like a shadow. They had provoked the Sci-Fi Empire, and now there would be no turning back. "Captain," Lieutenant Caleb Morrow's voice cracked through the tense air, his eyes glued to the sensors. "The Sci-Fi are closing in fast. Their ships are moving in a formation that suggests they're preparing to box us in." Alina's heart skipped a beat. They couldn't afford to be trapped. If the Sci-Fi managed to surround them, the horizon would be outgunned and outmaneuvered in seconds. They had no choice but to keep moving, keep dodging. "Take us deeper into the fleet," Alina ordered, her voice calm but determined. "We'll use the chaos of their formation to our advantage. Keep us on the move, Leela." Leela Tran, the ship's navigator, nodded and expertly manipulated the controls, sending the horizon into a series of rapid evasive maneuvers. The ship shuddered under the strain, but the sleek vessel held steady, darting and weaving through the incoming fire from the alien ships. Alina's eyes never left the view screen. The Sci-Fi vessels were enormous, far larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever designed. Their sleek, almost insect-like shapes glimmered in the darkness, glowing with an unsettling, eerie light that pulsed with every movement. "Captain, we can't keep this up much longer," Leela reported, her voice strained as she adjusted the ship's trajectory. "The Sci-Fi are too coordinated. They'll catch up eventually." "We don't need to outrun them," Alina replied, her voice cool, though her heart was racing. "We just need to buy some time. Marcus, what's the status of our shields?" Dr. Marcus Quinn, the ship's science officer, had been working furiously at his console, his brow furrowed as he monitored the ship's energy systems, We're at 70% power, Captain. The shields are holding, but they're taking a beating. We've got another few minutes before we need to reroute energy to keep them active. Alina knew they were running out of options. The Sci-Fi Empire had given them a warning, and now they were making good on it. Each blast from the alien ships rocked the horizon, and Alina's mind raced. She had to think of something, anything, to avoid a full-scale confrontation. Captain, I'm detecting something on the edge of the boundary marker, Quinn reported suddenly, his voice tinged with surprise. It's huge, larger than anything we've seen before. And it's moving toward us. Alina's eyes widened. Another ship, or something else entirely. The thought of a new, larger threat sent a ripple of anxiety through her, but she quickly pushed it aside. They couldn't afford to panic. Can you identify it? Alina asked, leaning forward. I'm not sure yet, Quinn replied, his fingers flying over the console. The energy signature is strange. It doesn't match any known patterns, not even the Sci-Fi's. It's a ship, but not in the traditional sense. I've never seen anything like it. Alina's gut clenched. A new player, and one they didn't understand, was now entering the fray. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was no coincidence, but she had no time to dwell on that now. Keep your eyes on it, Marcus, Alina said, her voice hardening. We need to know what we're dealing with. Before Marcus could respond, the comms array crackled to life again, and the harsh voice of the Sci-Fi Empire filled the air once more. Earthlings, you are foolish to think you can escape the consequences of your actions. Your vessel has trespassed into our domain, and now you will pay the price. Surrender, and we may spare your lives. The threat was unmistakable, and Alina could hear the underlying menace in the words. The Sci-Fi Empire was not interested in dialogue. They were looking for an excuse to eliminate a potential threat. They had already shown their hand. If they were given the chance, they would destroy the U.S. horizon without a second thought. We're not surrendering, Alina muttered under her breath, her fists clenched at her sides. She turned to her crew. We can't win this fight head-on. We need to use our wits, not just our weapons. Caleb's voice cut through the tension. Captain, the Sci-Fi are moving into position. They're preparing to flank us from both sides. If they open fire from all angles, we won't last long. Understood, Alina replied, her mind whirring as she considered their options. They needed something more than just evasive maneuvers. They needed to outsmart the Sci-Fi. Marcus, do we have any data on their propulsion systems? Anything we can use to our advantage? Alina asked, her tone sharp. Quinn nodded. There's a pattern in their movements, Captain. They're using some sort of subspace tunneling technology. It allows them to move at speeds much faster than anything we can match. But the catch is, their ships need to stabilize their position for a few seconds before they can use it again. If we can predict when and where they'll reappear, we might be able to get a shot in. Alina's mind snapped into action. If they could catch the Sci-Fi mid-tunnel, they might be able to deal a significant blow. The idea was risky, dangerous even, but it was their best shot. All right, Alina said, a spark of determination in her eyes. Leela, I need you to keep us moving. Don't give them a predictable target. Caleb, I want you to track their movements, specifically, their subspace patterns. Marcus, I need you to sync the ship's weapons with their subspace exit points. If we can hit them at the right moment, we might have a chance. The crew exchanged brief, determined looks. There was no room for error. They all knew the stakes, and they all understood the risks. Understood, Captain, Caleb said, his voice steady despite the rising tension. Tracking their subspace tunneling now. The next few moments passed in a blur of calculated chaos. The U.S. horizon zigzagged through the void, narrowly avoiding blast after blast from the Sci-Fi ships. Alina's heart raced as she watched the Sci-Fi vessels flicker in and out of subspace, trying to predict their movements, their timing. Finally, the moment came. A Sithari ship reappeared on the sensors, only this time, it was in the wrong place. It had stabilized in a position that was vulnerable, too close to the U.S. horizon. Now, Elena shouted. The crew worked in perfect harmony. Leela punched the throttle, sending the horizon hurtling toward the Sithari ship, while Caleb fired off precise calculations. Marcus aligned the targeting systems with deadly accuracy. The ship's cannons roared to life, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts that hit the Sithari ship squarely on its flank. The alien vessel shuddered under the impact, sparks flying from its hull. Direct hit, Captain, Caleb shouted. We've damaged their shields, but they're still operational. They're retaliating. The Sithari fleet erupted in a fury of fire, their weapons tearing through the space around the U.S. horizon. Elena's heart pounded as the ship shuddered again under the force of the blasts. But they had made their point. They had shown the Sithari that humanity was not to be underestimated. We've wounded them, Captain, but it won't be enough to stop them, Marcus said grimly, analyzing the damage. We need more time. And then, just as they were bracing for another onslaught, the mysterious anomaly from the boundary marker made its presence known. The massive object, whatever it was, had finally reached the edge of the battlefield. Its size was immeasurable, and it was closing in rapidly. Captain, we need to move, Leela shouted. The battle had just begun, and everything was about to change.